CivicSpaceTV, good afternoon and welcome to today's edition of the Youth Roundtable. I am Phillip Muliisa. Today is the 27th of December 2023. Welcome back from that Christmas break, the Christmas day. I know you are very happy. Baby Jesus is in your homes, in your churches, in your world, and we join you in celebration. Today, the youth are discussing the hits and misses at COP28, but also the climate emergency in the world. But also later in the show, we shall look at the impact of US sanctions on human rights abuses in this country, how they affect the governance of the Pearl of Africa. Discussing that is a panel of distinguished young people of this country, Uganda, and for the very first time in this year, I have more ladies than men on the show, and that's something to applaud. I'll give them a minute to each of them to introduce themselves and then see what they have for us today. I'll begin with the lady on my immediate left.
Mirembe Ssebunya is my name. A good afternoon to us all. Welcome back from the Christmas break. That has been quite rejuvenating as we end this year. I am a student of Kyambogo University, pursuing a bachelor's degree in science technology in biology, and currently the executive secretary of Environmental Hub Uganda. So when you get time, please follow us on Twitter. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Secretary, Environmental Hub Uganda. We can't wait to hear from what the hub has about climate, especially when we're going to talk about the climate crisis, but also the outcome of COP28 that was recently concluded in Dubai. Your Excellency.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen out there. I'd like to congratulate you to welcome the birth of Jesus Christ into your homes and hearts. This is Rose Lunkuse, the campus president from Makerere University, and currently a member in Marafiki initiative that is dealing climate and preserving the environment.
Thank you so much, and you're most welcome. You see, I have the right people. Climate Secretary, Marafiki, climate, and yeah, people for the task. Gentlemen.
Yes, Philip. Thank you so much. My name is Jonathan Basalirwa. I'm a second-year student at Makerere University, pursuing a bachelor's degree of commerce. I wouldn't also fail to welcome people back from the Christmas break. Hope it was a very good one to us all, and I definitely take this chance to wish all of us a happy new year. Hope 2024 gets better than 2023. Well, I'm pleasured being here. Looking forward to having a wonderful discussion about the various topics that are pertinent to us all. And it's my pleasure being the only gentleman, except you. But amongst the panelists, being the only gentleman, it's my pleasure being with you ladies. I also serve in different capacities at Makerere University. I currently serve as the chairperson of the Makerere University Entrepreneurship Club, and I believe it can as well have a connection with the topics we are going to discuss.
Well,
as
very,
far
very
as
much so. You business
entrepreneurship.
people are the people that destroy our environment.
Yes,
so
yes.
you really have
connected
to
the environment. I serve as the chairperson still of the Makerere University Tax Society. I serve as the vice president or the vice chairperson of the Makerere University Accountancy Bureau. That's an association that brings together all students that are in the accounting field at the university. Then I cannot forget my role as a class representative to the Bachelor of Commerce class. That's the day class. Yes, and before I hand over the microphone back to you, I can't fail to proudly associate with the mighty Osajefoland. That's Nkrumah Hall, where I come from, and that's under the North Coast Solidarity. It's a pleasure being here.
Thank you so much. And when you mentioned the Osajefoland, then you trigger the minds and hearts of Pan-Africanists out there. But you're most welcome to the show now.
Yes.
We're going to start with talking about the hits and misses from the COP28, but also the state of the climate crisis in the world. And when we talk climate, people, my friends in P2, P3, P5 will think about the rain and sunny and windy, I don't know, those things that were taught at that level. But what we talk about today, the climate crisis, is a subject that goes to the mind of you and I in terms of what I eat, in terms of where I sleep, in terms of employment, in terms of education, in terms of governance. I want to understand, and this is a general question, I need everyone's mind. What is the status of climate from your point of view? Where are we?
Well, in my point of view, let me start briefly stating that early this morning, as I was traveling here, the temperature was generally not so nice because the heat is quite scorching out there. So what I know for sure is that goal of having 1.5, I think, degrees Celsius rise in temperature has, I think, almost been hit, because most places we go to, we actually want to be under an AC because the temperatures are quite high. And then there are the untimely patterns of the rain and the sun, especially us Africans, in particular Uganda, who live by agriculture. Our patterns of farming actually relied on the dry and wet season, which are no longer consistent. So that is generally a problem with the climate. And then there is the rampant flooding that is happening, especially if we talk about Banda Sea. It rains very rigorously, and then you find water in the roads of Kampala, the capital city of Uganda, is having floods. And I'm very sure it has something to do with the climate and the clouds, things of the kind. So it's generally deteriorating by the day. And if we don't wake up, the generation after us is going to feel the heat. You know, sun rays actually cause cancer, skin cancer. So if the temperature keeps on increasing that bad, the rate at which people are suffering from skin cancer is actually going to increase. Yeah.
Thank you so much. Sun rays cause skin cancer. That's a very shabby image she presents about climate. What's your reception of those?
My reception about all that, the climate these days, it's seriously changing. Yesterday I was traveling from Namamvi coming this side. I was from a certain graduation of my friend. But what I found on the way, it was a lot of pollution coming from the factories. As in that Namamvi has a lot of factories. So as I was, like, the pollution that was hitting into me, like, even it had my breathing capacity, because all of us, we don't have the same rate. Some of us, we are not well off. So it was like, it had tolerated.
Almost suffocating.
I almost suffocated. So if we continue like these factories, you are going to see them around. They are scattering over everywhere. They have started cutting down trees and building factories. All those, like I can say, like even this side in Kawempe, they have started developing factories. So you are going to find hardy time that the global warming is going to be high. And if that global warming is high, that means the oxygen in the air is going to reduce. And we are going to find a problem that we are having a lot of carbon dioxide, methane gases in the environment. So it's going to give us a hardy task to breathe. That means that we are going to start seeing people suffering from asthma, starting just getting asthma, people failing to breathe if we don't wake up to do the needful as we the youth. If we don't majorly wake up and we decide and we say, let us stand on our knees and we say no more. Like if these people put in factories, because factories are also, this is trade, it is developing our country, can't resist it. But how are we bringing something that is good so that we can prevent the negativity that is bringing to our lives? Because every country that does not have citizens, that is not a country.
Thank you so much, Lunkuse there. And Jonathan,
Yes.
the status of climate.
Well, Philip, I would like us to observe the fact that, yeah, climate change is real. However much I understand, there is a school of thought that climate change is a hoax. And there's a group of people that really believe that it does not exist. One, I would like us to look to the fact that Africa, as a continent, contributes the least to the world pollution. And yet, it actually suffers the most. So it contributes the least, but then suffers the most. of the effects of climate change. But then back to our country, Uganda, I believe, like they've said, we are also experiencing the impact of this monster called climate change. Recently, I would like us to really reflect back to the issue of the grasshoppers, the Nsenene, because, you know, we almost missed them. People were asking themselves, where had they gone? And this is a question that we do not have to look at just denotatively, but then get deep into it and understand that these grasshoppers actually delayed to appear. Reason being, maybe the climate wasn't favorable. And like you can observe, they shifted from where they used to come from to a totally different location. However much people have political attachments to that, yet it's a matter of climate, because they were saying grasshoppers shifted from Masaka to Western Uganda. And, you know, it even has an economic impact, because trust me, as we are trying to elevate the effects of climate change, we still have to put in finance. And it comes back to what causes this climate change. Most of the times it's human activities. We contribute a lot to this. Like they've mentioned the factories, you know, wetlands, people are building in wetlands, and this is something that we shall obviously have to pay for later on. We may not be the ones to experience the very bad outcomes, but then, like she said, the future generations. So basically, that's my understanding of this whole concept of climate change.
Thank you, Jonathan. And he talks about the Nsenene, and that is something that is so dear to Uganda.
Yes.
And it is another crisis that existed in the country. But Madam Biologist and Secretary to the Environmental Hub, people were in Dubai for 2 weeks, actually 13 days, and a lot was talked about climate, but the focus usually is people want to phase out things that are dangerous to the environment, which environment leads to the change in climate. People were saying we should dwell with fossil fuels. People are saying we should stop using oil and gas and start using greener and more safer, you know, entities in this area. We talk about hydroelectricity, nuclear power. Is it time we dwell with petroleum and gas completely?
Well, in my opinion, I actually don't think that it is time to get rid of fossil fuels. We need to reduce them, but I think they exist with a reason. You know, something about this world is it's more of self-sustaining. There are things in existence that exist and help the world continue existing. So if you get rid of them completely, you may tamper with the ecosystem. That is for those great biologists to do research on. But now, like, if we deal away with fossil fuels, I am a Ugandan. I have some relation to Hoima. Currently, they call it the oil city. A lot has been invested in drilling oil, with whose progress I actually don't know. That whole project, I don't know its progress, but I know there has been an investment. So if an investment has been made just in the recent years, and when it's just about to reach its peak, they tell you we no longer want to use your fuel, it's going to be detrimental to the economy of Uganda, then the fossil fuels are not really good. Yeah, okay, I have both opinions. Like they would be good for Uganda because we have just started drilling. It's giving jobs to people, especially with the youth. The unemployed are getting something to do. But now the effect, I was traveling still and I saw a lorry releasing black soot into the atmosphere. That is something very lethal, and it comes about by the burning down of what? Fossil fuels. So it's also detrimental to the environment. So we can always look for a way to make the fossil fuels exist, but in a sustainable way to the environment and the climate as well.
Thank you so much. Madam Lunkuse, yes. You see, she seems to agree with the resolutions of the delegates that were at COP28. and she says we should not do away with fossil fuels, we should reduce. To what extent are we reducing? Because you see, I will be, for example, if Uganda consumes between 6 to 7 million liters of petroleum a day, should we reduce it to 3 such that some people are not able to access fuel? How do we do it?
For me, in my own opinion, I suggest that we reduce it to 50%. Like this side 50, this side 50, so that it balances the boat. Like when it's balancing, they use fuel this side and they use also hydroelectric power, because I know the renovation now, they want to start making cars that are using electricity to move, which is very good. But let us first see if also the dangers out of this thing. That if we reduce it to 50 and this project for the cars, for making electricity cars fails, already we are already having our back over of using the fuel. Yes, fuel, there are cars, by the way, it's now with the maintenance. As she said that she was moving and so releasing that black gas. That is the maintenance. It starts from the engine. The engine, sometimes those people, they don't maintain their cars in a good condition. We have seen cars that are moving on the road without releasing that bad gas. That means it's also, we need to sensitize our people, these drivers, that if your car is not in a good condition, please assist us and take it for maintenance, take it for service, so that it does not release this bad gas that brings it all. Because if they reduce it, like as you have said, that to 3%, seriously, it's going to weaken our economy. Last time in COVID, we used to see that the petrol was too high, and we saw all the impacts that were brought just because the petrol, even right now, it's on 5K. But I remember when I was in 2020, it was on 3K a liter. But now, right now, it's on 5. Deep in villages, they are buying it 7. That is petrol, diesel. People are no longer using paraffin for stoves. They are using it, but it's a bit expensive. So as they are passing these resolutions, they have to look to the developing countries. For me, I can't deny Uganda is still in the third developing country. That is the reality. We are still developing.
But you see, Lunkuse, when you say that we
Yes.
should reduce,
Yes.
this is a question about life.
Yes.
Let us reduce petroleum. Let us keep some cars that are putting out the gas. Let us keep the factories. Let us keep everything. You are making choices, options between life and petroleum and gas and fuel.
Yes, we are. This is a question between life and. But if they maximize it, for me, I remain standing on my point that they should maximize it to 50%. Because you can't, 3%, it's too little. It's too little.
Thank you. I want to pick Jonathan's view of this before I pick your opinion. Petroleum.
Yes.
Science has told us that the more we keep using this, then humanity is endangered. Human beings can cease to exist on this planet. Should we phase out oils?
Well, I would like to be direct, because at the end of the day, like you've talked about the fact that government leaders from all over the world gathered in Dubai during the cop28 that was in UAE. And, this has been an annual event where they come and decide to come up with solutions on how best they can attack climate change. But then, from my perspective, the question is, and it still stands, whether we've agreed to do away with fossil fuels or not, but what's the capacity of Africa to cope up with the resolution? For example, a country like Uganda, however much we've had good progress as far as promoting green energies is concerned, but then now, like she mentioned, she comes from Hoima, where they are just about to start drilling the oil. And as a country, we've waited for years, and this is the time where I would say it's the promised land for us, because this oil has given us what we call light at the end of the tunnel. We believe by the time the first drop of oil literally gets out, we shall be earning billions or if not trillions of shillings. But then you imagine you're in the state that Uganda is in, it wouldn't be fair. So fossil fuels, from my perspective, should not be phased out. And if it's to be done, then there should be a very viable substitution of the fossil fuels, because if at all you're to look at the fact that in Uganda, majority of the people use cars that run on fossil fuels, and we usually actually use a lot of fossil fuels in most of our activities, how best can we phase out without having an alternative?
You see, when you say an alternative or something that fits in that gap,
Yes.
government of Uganda over time has said we have excess electricity. We have electricity we are not consuming. We have in excess solar power. The sun, even now, it is shining outside.
True.
And these are sources of energy that we can use. Why not?
But then do we have the infrastructure to facilitate these energies? Because it comes back to the financial question. Because most of the developing countries and their leaders that represented, the biggest complaint was on financing. Yes, you're giving us these suggestions. They are beautiful. They are good for the climate. But then where is the financing going to come from? Because a country like Uganda has very many problems to deal with. We have a big problem of potholes. We have a big problem of unemployment, and you want us to really put humongous investment.
Do you then submit to the
electricity?
school of thought that these countries that have contributed the most to polluting the environment and destruction and the burning of coal and fuel for hundreds of years should pay for that they did?
I believe they should. Yes, they should. Because as we were beginning in my opening remarks, I told you that Africa contributes less to this pollution, but then suffers the most. So I believe it should be a good gesture if at all these countries really do their due diligence and finance this gap so that we can catch up with the requirements of the resolutions. But a case in point is, COP28 was in UAE, it was in Dubai. And we all very well know that Dubai or UAE is among the largest producers of oil. COP27 was in Egypt. Yes, 26 was in UK, and 29 is going to be in Azerbaijan. So now, when it comes to UAE, I believe they cannot easily get away from the fact that oil contributes a lot to their economy. And so they cannot do away with it immediately. So this is a very conflicting question and resolution, because trust me, if at all I was in the capacity on behalf of a country like Uganda, I wouldn't be in agreement with such a decision.
Thank you so much. And when you talk about in position for this country, we know that Uganda sent over 619 delegates to that conference. Hopefully these people represented and gave an opinion that fits your thinking or thinking of perhaps the country. But I want to come to you, the environment, as you give me you wanted to compliment something, but life. I don't know whether you've seen fish die in the lakes. You're a biologist. You are aware that there are some species of animals that went into extinction on this planet, even in this country. You are aware that when you go to Lake Victoria now, there are areas where people used to catch fish, and today there is nothing. It's a dangerous bet we are in. Should we take the stake and keep the oil?
Like I earlier said, in my opinion, about the oil, we should actually reduce the use. Like, take an example, we are 4 in the room, and each of us had come driving. It would mean that each of us has actually bought fuel
Mm.
and put in their tank, but sat in the car alone. Now, take for instance, we were 4 people and we got 1 car to bring us all here. It would mean we have occupied 4 seats and we have bought about 3 liters of oil, which would have saved the extra 333. That would be 12 liters. So instead of using 12 liters of oil to reach here, I would have used 3. So we would have burned down less. So one of my suggestion would be that people in this country that uses fossil fuels, we use cars to capacity such that we reduce the people who are actually using the fuel.
You see, Angela, what you're saying is an attack on oil business. Do you think?
No, I'm looking for how to reduce it. I'm not trying to attack the business, but
I
to
must tell you
sustain.
that there is a line of thought, and it is actually factual, it has been proven over time. Oil companies from the 70s invested in false science. They gave money to researchers, and what is said that some people believe climate change is a hoax. It is something paid for by multi-million oil companies. They give a lot of money to these people to prove their point. You think they will allow that then?
Well, if they put it under consideration, I believe the fossil fuel being banned will reduce the fuel that we burn down to produce all the emissions that affect the ozone layer would reduce. So about the aquatic life. Recently, I was at Gava Fish Landing site and I beheld the water. And I was sad because the color of the water was not watering. I don't know how to put it nicely, but it was not really nice. But the water has, they call it eutrophication or something, having very many nutrients. So it's actually going to enable the green life about the aquatic life to grow. So when this green life grows, it affects the aquatic life because it's cutting off the supply of light, cutting off the oxygen, and there is a massive growth of water hyacinth. And water hyacinth itself is a weed that grows very fast, and it's also an indicator of poisoning, lead poisoning, and some other poisoning. So aquatic life and the nutrients in the water wouldn't be nice. But then another problem which the water is facing is oil spills, because oil moving from different places when it rains is washed off also into the water bodies. Water and oil doesn't mix. Water floats on top of oil. When it floats on top of the oil, it cuts off the oxygen supply. It kills the aquatic life. So if we are going to get ways of reducing the oil in circulation, but still leave it there, like have it in circulation, but have it in a less quantity, yeah, it would be a good thing because you would have less oil spills, less effect on aquatic life, less emissions, less effect on our lives. Yeah, if we have less oil, it's going to sustain the development as we hope that the temperature doesn't raise very detrimentally.
Thank you so much. I think you had something to add to that, but also we keep saying let's keep some oil, but we know that we are now living in a global world. We have the United Nations, and in any case, the United Nations agrees that, okay, all nations on the world dwell with petroleum, dwell with gas, dwell with these things. How does Uganda survive?
Uganda, in my point of view, Uganda, as I'm looking that most of things we use fuel, I'm not seeing Uganda surviving. Seriously, I'm not seeing Uganda surviving. Because starting from the petrol stations, there are people that are being employed. Just the Shell employs around 10 people. That means that is unemployment coming. We're already having a problem for unemployment, and unemployment is coming back. Gas, people have just adopted with gas because we are people in Uganda a long time ago, even in 2000 just here, 2006, 7, 10, people are just adopting gas and they have seen it's the quick method to cook. Now you are going to find in many homes like 5%.
Maybe if I give information.
Yes.
Yes, domestic use, people are just adopting it
Yes.
recently, but industrial use, many factories in the country use gas, many factories use petroleum to run their machines.
Yes, they have been using it, but I was giving it to the point of domestic because we are concerned now on citizens. Even these companies, by the way, it's going to affect. Companies can easily adopt electricity because they have been using gas and electricity. Because as you visit companies, serious companies, they say that using electricity, it's good. It's much even saving. It's saving them.
It's cheaper.
Yes, it's cheaper than the gas. Now we are looking at these people who are at home. You are going to find that for them, they are having a different complaint, that they are saying that electricity is expensive than gas. That is it. Because these days a person just puts on yaka and goes. Then this yaka, it's speeds up than the companies, because for them they lack enough companies. They don't use this yaka method. But for us at domestic level, we use yaka. But companies, they know they know how they do it in their own ways in the companies. So I won't attack that side. But I'm not seeing Uganda existing seriously. If they say that totally fuel, gas should be stopped, I'm not seeing Uganda existing. Because even the electricity, we are going to find that in Uganda here, we are the people who are giving the East African countries, they are getting electricity from here. We are seeing Kenya, it's getting some from here. So we shall see competition will be high. Let us look at that state. They say fuel is off, gas is off. We are only using one method, that is electricity. That means there are expenses that are going to come that are very high. Yet our economy and our income, as you look on it, that our income is very less than the expenses we use. You are going to find a person is unemployed in a month and is given 200. Now you are telling this person he has to use electricity over 100,000, and you are going to find that if you are one person if you are one person in the market, you are the one producing that thing. That means there is a lot of competition. You are going to put every restriction you put, the people will just follow it. There is no option. But here people are having options. You say, if I can't use gas, I can use electricity. If I cannot use electricity, I can use fuel. People are still having that authority. So for me, in my suggestion, I would suggest that if they are putting this into implementation, at least they would look to the people that after these are the side effects that will come later in future. You are going to find that there is going to be seriously a total crisis in the economy. People will be fighting so that they live. My fellow had talked about that they use car, like sharing cars. But sharing cars in Uganda, on a normal circumstance, even just getting a lift on the road, it's difficult. Then starting to say that sharing cars, unless they are banning the taxes and they bring buses that are electricity.
Thank you so much. Jonathan.
Oh, yes.
The African continent is abundantly rich in oil and many other minerals, because climate is not about oil alone. Every mineral, every time you go to explore, to dig up and pick the diamonds, to dig and get the gold, you are affecting something on the environment. You cut down a tree, you open the ground, and so on.
True.
How does Africa relate to its resources that are in the ground, but also on, because we have a couple of them on the trees, you have to cut the trees for timber and so on. How does Africa relate to these minerals? How do we get the money out of them without being so detrimental to the environment?
Well, it comes back to the various methods that are used in extraction of these particular minerals, because trust me, this is our wealth, and we cannot just pause extraction or utilization of this wealth. And also back to policy guidelines, recently they banned deforestation and charcoal use, charcoal sale and all that. But then how do we relate with the minerals? Because one, the trees themselves are a resource. Like I've said, charcoal was highly used and it is still being used by various households. However much it's very expensive. But now to the minerals that are concealed beneath the surface, I believe it would be good practice if at all after extraction we plant more trees. And even if it's not directly related to extraction of these particular minerals, I believe it should become culture for each one of us to really do so much of the tree planting, said that you cut down one, you plant 10 trees. I believe that would be a good way of handling this. But still, even when you're to look at the extraction methods, you know, there are those whereby you have to really clear a huge ground. That implies you're cutting very many trees. But then there are those that require you to clear just a few trees, but then get deep down there and get the minerals. So I believe it would be better if we really opt for methods that are not very, dangerous to the environment. We opt for those that are friendly as far as deforestation is concerned. But mainly, we do more of the reforestation.
I don't know, what you give is really promising. Cut one, plant 10.
Yeah.
But over time, we've seen our government and many other people in different offices. You had reports that Mavira Forest is being sold off, Budongo Forest for sugarcane plantation. You've had Chinawataka Swamp currently. I was reading a report from the KCC. It has been sold to 65 individuals on freehold. Who is going to supervise this tree planting?
Well, tree planting, in my opinion, it should not even be supervised. Like I said, it should become culture. And it comes back to the fact that in case we really take it upon ourselves and do not only stop at the youth roundtable in the studios of the CivicSpaceTV, but then go out there. We leave the boardroom discussions, but go implement. Because trust me, if each one of us tasked themselves to go and plant 100 trees, this would be 400 trees planted. And that's a good number. So trust me, if at all we are ready to take on more action than just the words, because trust me, we do not have to only plant trees when we are supervised. But the question of who is selling off these, natural resources, the swamps, the forests. So it comes back to the question of administration. Yes, the people who are in charge, are they really being accountable to us as a citizenry? Because if you're to now question the KCCA, if you're to question NEMA, who is responsible for this, and what is the direct benefit that Ugandans are going to have out of selling these particular forests or swamps, like you've said? If at all the answer is not really substantial, then I believe we have to try so much and check the people up there so that we get back onto the normal conduct.
Thank you so much, Madam Secretary. At lower levels of education, primary, our kids are taught there's something called the ozone layer, and it is somewhere in the skies. I remember the first time they taught me about that, I went outside and tried to locate it. I was unsuccessful, but my point is my grandmother or grandfather in the village, very far away, uses firewood or sometimes charcoal to do his cooking. And I want to help him or her understand the ozone layer and how we're destroying the environment and the future. How do I help her understand this? She's not aware.
Let me see. That is me looking for ways of putting it in English as easy as for the layman. And what I would tell the person is, if you are in a room, in fact, if you are in the kitchen using firewood to cook, and the smoke occupied the space in the room, how would you feel? You would feel like everything's not nice. Now, imagine that smoke left this level of just your house and has gone up and is covering you like a blanket. Like, okay, the ozone is like a blanket. So this smoke is all going up, and everybody else is, let's say
It's
literally
stopping it.
everybody else is also releasing it, and it's getting up,
The
affecting the
whole world
ozone.
is covered.
Like, let me first take it to the blanket theory. You are in a blanket. These things of steaming, yeah? You're in a blanket and you cover your head in the blanket and the steam keeps rising. It keeps there. The heat keeps increasing. It keeps hot inside there. And it keeps, the heat keeps on increasing as the steam goes up. So that is what is going to happen. The heat, the blanket is retaining the heat. The steam is raising the heat. So all the heat is coming up and it's all filling you up. It's also what's happening. You're raising the smoke is going up, it's covering the ozone. So you're releasing heat and the other one is retaining heat. So the heat is generally increasing. I think that's like the easiest way I would put it. But these people in the villages, what is good about home is there is a great number of trees around. So somehow the environment keeps self-sustaining. And trees tend to draw to themselves like the carbon. You were complaining that Africa is having more effects of the general
Climate
emission.
change.
There's some science to that. Africa has very many trees. Those people who are burning all those fuels actually have very few trees. So the trees keep drawing the carbon to themselves. So they keep bringing problems to themselves, like how magnets attract metals.
Yeah.
That's how the trees keep drawing the carbon to themselves. So somehow the effect tends to become a lot on us. Yes, that's what I recall my teaching.
Oh, oh. Learning point there. Trees attract the carbon from Europe and the
But then what do we do about such a thing?
I don't know.
We don't cut the trees to
Let
keep
them
the
also
carbon
plant
dioxide.
their own trees.
So that we do not attract very many problems for ourselves.
Thank you so much. But it is very important to understand how we help our citizens understand the extent to which this is dangerous. Lunkuse,
Yes.
the people in the villages, the people that do not go to school, our fathers, our grandparents, the kids that are in up country do not go to school. How do they get this information about climate change, understand it, and be, active parties in trying to resolve this whole challenge?
Okay, in my point of view, as we the elites, now it's us to go back and we sensitize our youth on the village level. And we have, by the way, many organizations that have come out to protect the environment, to do what? But these organizations, sometimes some can come with good ideas and where they have good concepts in books, like sensitizing people in village, going very far, they say up country, sensitizing these people. For me, the best way I could suggest this to be, like we, the elites, like people who are coming from different areas, you come up this starting from the local government, from the LOC1, at least to start organizing. Like we can say conferences, but on the village level, they say village meetings. They start calling people, sensitizing them about the environment. As my sisters clearly indicated, is that you bring even a blanket to them, because these people, they want something that they see practical. If you want to implement something in those people, you have to make it practical so that they can accept what you are telling them. You bring this blanket, you put this person inside, you do it practical, and you say that now you tell them, now you see, we have to resort to this method, but not just to tell them that from today onwards, no more going into forests to collect firewood. We are going to start putting there policemen. You are going to see strikes around. They will strike because you have not told them. Why are you refusing them to do such a thing? But if you go on that level, you tell them that if we stop using firewood, we are going to resort to using electricity. But Ella, you are telling them to use electricity, but it is deep in village. Just from here, I'm coming from just here in Chagwe. There is no electricity there. That means you are causing just a crisis. You are telling them they should not use fuel, they should not use firewood, they should not use charcoal, but you have not given them the electricity. So now it's in our country. For me, that's why I say that it's totally going to be difficult to implement the things that were passed in that COP 2020. That was 28.
Thank you so much. And really, government at such a day and time, we cannot fail to have electricity in Chagwe. Let's work on that. But Jonathan,
Oh yes.
you know, recently we had the COVID crisis, and we saw how our health system was strained. People were not getting oxygen. The person with the highest amount of money was able to access medical care.
True.
People died in large numbers. Get out of this country. Some countries were having more than 1,000 deaths every day because of COVID.
Yeah.
And we are looking at a climate crisis. We have floods. We've seen floods in countries like Kuwait. We've seen floods recently in Mozambique, in Rwanda here. Talk about Nigeria, talk about Libya recently, and Morocco, the earthquake. Thousands of people died. How prepared is this country for anything such?
Well, all those that you've mentioned are natural disasters.
Yes.
And you know, it's too hard to prepare for a disaster because one, you can never know when it's going to come. You can never be adequately prepared for it. But then, you know, there is always that element of preparedness. That's why we even have a whole ministry in charge of disaster.
Maybe if I can give
Yes.
information on that one, when you say we are not aware,
Mm.
we are aware they will happen. When I cut down a tree, I know when a strong wind comes, nothing will break that strength.
But we are never certain of when the strong wind will come.
Okay.
Yes, so that's why I really look at the element of uncertainty. But then, as Uganda, like I said in the beginning, we really need to do more of the precautionary moves. For example, like you've said, if at all whatever is causing earthquakes elsewhere is because of, you know, deforestation, how best are we going to control that? If whatever is causing floods elsewhere is swamp reclamation, how best are we going to protect our wetlands? Recently, wetlands were gazetted, though we do not know how gazetted they are because everything is possible in our country. So you may gazette, but still tomorrow you find a skyscraper in the same wetland that was gazetted. But away from that, you know, it comes back to us. You know, Philip, you and I have a contribution to make, either to put an end to the occurrence of these disasters such as the floods, the earthquakes, at a certain point and at a certain time T when they are likely to occur, which we are not certain. How? By looking at how best do we really manage our, you know, disposal of rubbish, for example, plastics, and the greatest issue at hand is plastic pollution. You know, looking at countries like Rwanda where they've managed to really control this, they are now glittering compared to us, whereby we are having more of the plastics everywhere. It's just worsening. So if at all we could come up with measures that can, you know, control the spread and the poor disposal of these plastics, or if not, manage their usage, then we would get to a point where we shall be somehow sure and certain that these disasters are likely not to happen to us. And it's back to us, personal responsibilities, provided you still drink from a bottle of soda, the plastic bottles, or you get something in a cavera and then after use, you throw it, you know, from the window of your car, or you just throw it anywhere on the compound, then you're not doing good to us. You're doing a disservice to the nation, and, you know, with time, it will come back to haunt us. Or if not us, then our grandchildren.
Thank you so much. Mirembe, you see, he mentions plastics. What options do we have if we can't use plastic?
Well, I've also ever given plastic a thought. What options do we have? Very many of us opt to get, we prefer to have a bottle of Rwenzori water. But I'm thinking, I'm still going to go back to my theory. You know, we studied environmental protection, environmental health this semester. And they're saying one of the methods of reducing waste is packaging more. Now, you have one bottle of Rwenzori water. I think it's about 300 ml. I don't recall properly, but that quantity.
500.
But there is this
Big one.
Yeah. Now, if you're going to provide dispensers and everybody comes with their own bottle, it means, like, if we are 4 and we all came with our own bottles, none of us is going to throw a bottle. Simply means we have reduced the number of bottles being thrown of plastic that day. So we are going to have our own bottles, which we are going to use for quite a number of times. So that is you reducing the bottles in circulation. That's increasing the packaging, increasing what you are packaging, reducing the packages. Then you can always opt for, let me say, not plastic, paper bags. Like, we have cookies on sale that are sold in these plastic containers. There are these egg which they sell in plastic containers. If they would opt for the traditional kind of egg rack design, those are more environmentally degrading. They can degrade in the environment and the ecosystem won't be affected. So if we could opt for more friendly options, I think even using tins is friendly, because tins actually degrade. They break down, they can go back into the soil. But plastic, even when you rub it, you can, even after burning it, you can easily find that it has still survived.
You know,
Because,
science says for plastic to decompose, it will take roughly 400, is it 400 or 4,000 years? For one micro something of
But
plastic.
then, Philip, there are also plastic tins.
Exactly.
That are
There is
eco-friendly.
plastic everything. We even have plastic pens on this show. But
There are some packages that look polythene but are actually eco-friendly because they have been designed with
there is something
organic
plastic.
If they would get that in circulation, it would be a better deal. But this one of Rwenzori, okay, let me keep quiet. Rwenzori is, by the way, good water. Yeah.
Thank you so much. Madam President, many critics say that the COP conferences are very good initiatives. But they say the mode of what is done at COP28, first of all, you host more than 10,000 guests. Dubai boasted of having hosted about 20,000 guests for a conference. These people went by air. Some petroleum was burnt. They drove some cars. They took some water. They slept in some hotels, meaning there's environment was cleared to set up that hotel. And where the conference was held, the technology, the mobile phones they were using, they're saying the conference itself is contributing to what it is about to end. Do you think we need to change the mode of conferencing in terms of environment?
Yes, I think we should change it. Because this is, as you are asking me, it's a point of view that there are a lot of expenses that were used instead of bringing them to ground to sensitize people. Because someone just to board a flight to go to Dubai, in actual sense, we use millions. I have never boarded one to go to Dubai. So I don't know actually how much they put in. But what I know, it's millions. And just spending a night in a hotel, it's also millions. That means if instead of putting these conferences, this world is digitalized. I think someone can stay in Uganda, someone can be in Canada, someone can be in Kenya, and they do this conference online. Why it's a week, since these people have delegated themselves to learn.
Do we even need 600 people to represent a country like Uganda?
Of course, 600 people. It depends. I didn't know how the criteria for taking these 600 people, because you find that the 600 people are just moved from the central. If they were at least moved from northern, from east, but there are 600 people, they are many.
Lunkuse, 600 people
600 people, they are many.
representing Uganda.
They are very many.
Each.
Because for me, I was putting it on the per level that you may find that the criteria they used, people went to Dubai, they were exactly people from Central. You find that people from Northern, they didn't go. You find that people from East, they didn't go. That means the representation that they went to Dubai.
When you say Central and Northern and East, what do you refer to? Do you refer to Central in terms of tribal orientation or Central in terms of urban setting?
No, in terms of urban setting, by the way, in terms of, I'm not referring it to, but in terms of urban setting, you find that people who went to this conference in Uganda here.
In other words, you, the elites, took advantage of the opportunity of knowledge and so on and went to Dubai.
No, it's not like that. But you are going to find that there are the people that went to Dubai, they were more in Central. That means they just came back. Even you are going to find these people that they just came back and seated with their knowledge at home. They didn't come and implement this. They didn't come over and they start what they have learned from Dubai. They didn't bring it to Uganda, because I know they were very many. So they saw very many people. They initiated with these people. They ended up getting at least many knowledge about it. But some people are so mean that they are still having this knowledge that they got from those countries. They are still suited with it at their homes.
Or perhaps they went for a different engagement. Some people went to tour. But I want to pick a thought on that. 600 people, and of course we didn't have the biggest delegation. There are countries like Brazil that took 1,200, countries like Nigeria in 800 and so on. But 600 people for a country like Uganda, you spent, for every individual that was at the level of minister and permanent secretary, their per diem per day was 5.2 million shillings for the 13 days. They were paid for a hotel. They were paid for a flight, business class to and fro, food, transportation by the government of Uganda. Do we even have that money to spend on such projects?
My opinion is going to be, I think, overpaid African, but okay, let me share it. What I think, like she said, it doesn't really sit right that they sent very many people there, because what are they going to implement? I'm sorry for stating, what is so new about what was discussed there? I'm just wondering. You can all ponder upon that and we'll get answers a little later. But if we talk of the investment, the monies you have spoken of, anyway, those monies they have spoken of, one seedling of a tree is about how much?
500
trees.
It's cheap.
It's 2,000. 1 million will get you how many trees?
Very many.
You've gone to discuss how to increase on the
trees,
the ecosystem surviving, and you're talking about trees. If I got 1 million and bought the number of seedlings that are needed, that fall in the 1 million, and got land that has been gazetted to plant those trees and actually planted them, the effect of that 1 million would be far greater than the one of the cop28. But I'm not trying to say that it wasn't useful. It was very useful, because we wouldn't be sitting here to talk. So it has employed some youths. And still, that the money which was invested in taking the people out, giving them the per diem, if I'm going to talk about my country, Uganda, where we have a greater number of people surviving on less than $1 a day, if they got that money and made up sustainable projects in the local areas of persons who are underprivileged, I think it would be better sustenance and reduce the number of delegates. Because if we call them and ask for accountability of the knowledge they have received, we may be left asking questions and wondering. If we ask them what they are going to do, what they have planned to do, you're going to hear very big ideas. But the implementation, we have ideas. We have very good ideas. But then after they tell you how they are going to implement, and the next thing on the problem will be finance. How much did they spend to go? A great deal. Now, they may even need less than how much they invested to go to implement whatever they have to implement, but they would still find it a problem and look for funds. Yet they invested them in motion. But as I said, I would speak like a pendulum. I'm wondering where that money is going, because if it had actually gone into the masses, these things of saying Uganda has a very high budget, sometimes I wonder where we'll be putting our money. But since I'm not an economist, I'm not in commerce like he is, I will be nice.
Thank you so much. Jonathan,
Yes, please.
what is the role of businesses and business people like yourself in combating this challenge of climate crisis?
Businesses for so long have been greatest contributors to the welfare of people world over. And in whatever issue that comes up, be it health, be it security, be it climate, be it education, there has to be an element of economics or finance or business to the layman. What's their contribution?
Briefly, I'll cut you short. You will complete your point after this very short break. Thank you so much,
yes.
Ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much, Avia, for keeping with us. It is the Youth Roundtable on CivicSpaceTV. We shall go into a very short break and shall be right back.
National Water and Sewage Corporation is committed to providing cost-effective, clean, safe and reliable quality water and sewage solutions in urban centers across Uganda. National Water and Sewage Corporation reaffirms its commitment to 100% service coverage, geographical expansion, infrastructure development, water quality, pro-poor initiatives, customer care and stakeholder engagement, catchment and water source protection. Be a water hero. Pay your bills to zero balance. Report all leaks, busts, and illegal water connections to enable us serve you better. Reach us through our toll-free numbers on 0800 200 977 or 0800 300 977. You can also communicate with us through any of our online platforms or visit the National Water and Sewage Corporation office nearest to you. This message is brought to you by National Water and Sewage Corporation.
You are still on Uganda's leading freedom platform, the CivicSpaceTV, and this is the Youth Roundtable. I am Phillip Muliisa. Today we are looking at the hits and misses of COP28 in Dubai, but also we're going to have discussions about the impact of the US human rights sanctions on individuals, but also institutions in the state of Uganda. Discussing that is a panel of distinguished young people of this country, Jonathan, Lunkuse, and Mirembe here. And while we left off for the break, Jonathan, you were talking to us about the role of business people, of entrepreneurs like yourself, in combating the climate crisis.
Yes, well, picking up from there, I was saying the role that business people have to play is very critical in such a way that whatever we've been discussing has been rotating around the question of finance. COP28 itself, like I said earlier on, Africa's leaders were complaining mostly about the financing question. So whatever has to be done by the business people or by the economists of our country, Uganda, for example, is straightforward in such a way that in case all businessmen and women really came up front to the task of alleviating the effects of climate change, then we would have it no more. Actually, we would not experience it. If at all businesses, for example, those in the plastics production industry, would shift to a better alternative, that would be their contribution. But still, if at all these businesses, through their corporate social responsibilities, the CSR activities, would donate trees to the public, these trees get planted, it would be a good contribution. But at the same time, at inception of business ideas, looking for the firm's site or where the farm will be located. How about we, think about it from deep within our hearts? Even when I've been given permission to set up a factory, but I'm going to clear a wetland, and I said no to that, it would be more patriotic and it would be a good contribution as far as alleviation of the effect of climate change is concerned.
Thank you so much, and I hope business people who are, because business is about profit, these people want to make money, and
Yes.
you are telling me to refuse to set up a factory in some swamp in Chinawataka or somewhere in Kampala and take it to a drier place in Masaka or Nakasongola,
Yeah, sure.
which is a distance. I'm going to incur more expenses of transport. Do you see business accepting that?
Yes, sure, because I will cite one Joel Jeffa Aita, who is a renowned businessman from Arua City. He actually puts forward the debate of, shifting all productive business to Nakasongola and perhaps having Nakasongola as our capital city. So him and many others who agree to that school of thought, I believe, are compliant enough, and I would also be under that bracket. However much we look at profit, but then not profit at the expense of the people, because these are customers that we shall need. So if at all we are to do anything, let it not be driving towards endangering the survival of humanity. That's what I would say.
Does business care about survival?
Yeah, sure, because, without the clients, there is no business. And, if at all the market is not really sustainable, which is the source of the lifeblood of businesses, that's money through purchase of products, then business would be no more. We have a phrase in entrepreneurship that goes, customer is king. So implying whatever affects the customer affects the business. So if at all we are going to have more of our customers or customers to be lose out because of the climate change crisis, then shall we remain in business, if I may say? So it is upon us as the business fraternity to come up with really very viable solutions that are feasible enough, one, to cater for the profit margin, but then still without affecting climate. I believe that would be a good deal.
Thank you so much. Mirembe, I want to pick your view in a minute, perhaps your recommendation. What should government do to reverse this climate crisis that is emerging in our country? Karamoja is getting drier by the day. Famine in the country. Where there is no famine, you have floods. Where you don't have floods, there is excess heat recent. According to the United Nations, this has been the hottest year ever recorded in history. What should government do?
And it doesn't get cooler. But anyway, what should the Ugandan government do? If we are talking about floods and drought or famine in the same country, I will state my opinion that the problem is having the idea and not knowing how to implement it. But I know for sure, there is a way water can leave the places that are flooded and go to the places that don't have water. We'll need a good number of, I think, water engineers, all those kind of engineers, to understand the direction or the flow or the patterns of the water that it actually needs to take to shift route. Like, I keep on giving Egypt as reference. Egypt was a desertified land. And right now, it's self-sustaining. The agriculture there is top-notch. Come to Uganda, whose background I think is now changing, but is officially agriculture, is failing to sustain its own agriculture. And yet, it has very fertile lands. So I believe water can be shifted from flooded places to other places. Just get a way of making water go in circulation, those pipes. Then for, let's see, the heat is not about to reduce. because it keeps getting hotter. And if the government is still selling off chunks of land that have trees for persons whose minds are capitalized on money, it's not getting any cooler. And it's not about to reduce that. In fact, the rate at which the temperatures are increasing is going to increase. So if the government would actually rethink all these contracts of selling off the land and actually...
Yesterday I was watching an interview by the president of Kenya, and he says he wishes their country was like Uganda. Uganda, about 86% of our land is arable with normal rainfall, and with Kenya it's only 15% of their land. And he says the opportunity Uganda has, had it been with Kenya, would be very far away. Do you think government has not done enough in trying to...
I think that Uganda has a lot of fertile land. I think Uganda has very many unemployed youth. I think Uganda has the ability to get the original seeds that are not genetically modified. And I think the climate of Uganda can still sustain itself. So all those people have put on board the climate, the environment, the unemployed youth, and the seed. If we would choose to make our soils productive, because you're going to have fertile land, but the fertile land is not going to bring forth except if you plant. And if you don't plant, what are you going to expect? The land is going to look at you as you look at it. So you invest in the land. Get these people who don't have things to do, because we have a great number of unemployed youth. Invest in the food. If they are going to till the land, dig and plant, the food may take about a year, and we'll be providing food for ourselves. Because if we have 85% of land that is arable, and in the same country, we are suffering from hunger, famine, malnourishment. I mean, the question is, where did we go wrong?
Thank you so much. Lunkuse, briefly, she talks about famine, and when you go in the market today, you have all kinds of food stuff imported from Egypt. We were importing from Libya before challenges came in that country. Morocco, we're importing food from there. Tunisia, we're importing food stuff from there. And the reason I mention these countries is because these are desert lands.
Yes.
We're importing food from Israel. We're importing foods, tomatoes from Israel, onions from China, go in the market, Saudi Arabia, and these are complete deserts. What does the government have to do to make sure we correct this?
For me, I think the government, we are just putting everything to the government. But in actual sense, it's with us. People are having land in village, hectares and hectares that their grandfathers left for them. But you find some of them leaving villages, coming to town, thinking that in town, in Kampala, there is good life. Yet in Kampala, it's really a hard life in Kampala. Just getting somewhere to rent, it's very difficult. So for me, I would just advise, I'm not blaming the government. The government is trying. It's trying, because you have seen the government has put their NADs, giving them seeds. So let us be sincere to the government. The government at least is trying. But even the problem is with us, who are leaving the dormant land in villages and coming in town. And this dormant land, they are there, just growing weeds. So for me, I would like to just...
The citizens should up their game.
Yes.
Thank you so much. Briefly, in less than a minute, your recommendation. What do we do to get out of this shabby image in regards to climate and agriculture?
Well, thank you so much, Philip. Climate change concerns us all. It's not only the role of government, it's not only the role of, climate change activists or the role of the civil society, but our role, me, you, her, and everybody else. If at all we really sat down and thought deep and came up with conclusions at a personal level to end climate change, then we would achieve, remarkably, because if at all Philip sits down, comes with solutions on how best he's going to fight the impact that's negative arising from climate change. Then I do the same. She does the same. She also does the same. Then that means at the end of the day, we shall have a pool of solutions. And not only should we stop on discussions, let's not only stop in, attendance of these particular boardroom meetings, but get down to the ground and implement whatever is required. Yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you so much. And I want us to shift gears and talk about something differently in our last minutes of the show. And we know the government of the United States since 2018 has imposed sanctions, economic, travel, political, on individuals, on companies, on institutions, but also on the state of Uganda. And many of these have come in because of what they call human rights violations in the name of arbitrary arrests of individuals, detention without trial, persecution of politicians on the opposition side of government, and recently, because of the passing of the anti-homosexuality bill, a lot has come to this country. World Bank said it will no longer lend to us money. Uganda was suspended from their AGOA, trade pact with the United States of America and a couple of other things, and they are still threatening more. I want us to assess the impact of this. When they sanction individuals, they say General so-and-so can no longer travel to the United States. They can no longer do business out of Uganda. They can no longer trade. Uganda can no longer be lent to. What does that mean for this country?
What does that mean? Let me first take this down to relationships. When you relate with someone, you literally have your sustenance off of them. And when you break up with them, it's hard. The time when you break up, but you heal, you pick up your pieces, and you try again. So, Uganda has been invaded with different superpowers. And because of reaching grounds where we don't agree, they have felt that in the relationship we have had, we are not worth continuing because of our opinion. I am very proudly Ugandan, very proud of my president for signing that anti-homosexual bill. I'm very, very proud of him, by the way. So, if you are in a relationship and because you misunderstood yourselves, you broke up, it's what has happened to Uganda. You pick up your pieces and you try again. I believe China was not as great as it is right now. Yeah? But China took a chill pill. When you're in China, you speak Chinese. It's so hard to find another language. And when we're getting colonized, they used language to disorganize us, actually. Because nowadays, we don't really want to associate with our background. You find it hard for somebody who is a Muganda to read Luganda, and yet it is your language. Now, if Uganda takes on all the negative energy, we are not going to give you this, we are not going to give you that, and breathes in and says, you know what? Like you said, we have fertile land. We can grow that food for ourselves. And do you know what we are all suffering for on this planet Earth? Everybody's working hard to get food in their stomach. Sometime I sat down and I thought, we are all working hard to get food in our stomachs, but the difference is where we eat the food from and the price of the food. Because the ministers, they make sure they eat food. The only thing is they're going to eat food of like $100 or something like that, and I'm going to eat food of like 10,000. But the issue is, have I eaten? Literally, what is keeping us sustenance is the eating. So when you break up with someone, you pick up yourself, you try again, make an attempt at life. We are very many people in Uganda. We are about 40 million, if I'm not mistaken. And the 40 million, if we grow our own food, we shall survive. And the matter of fact that we are producing food organically, it would mean that they will actually, in the near future, come looking for us for the organic food. Because the one which is in circulation, according to rumors, is genetically modified. Then if the country investing in itself to work on the health of the citizens, we shall invest less in things that don't matter. If we are going to invest in pregnant women, We are invest in the sick people. We are going to have invest in the environment. Make sure that it is humanly friendly. We are going to have less hospital cases. We're going to invest less in the in treating. You know that phrase. It is better to be safe than to be sorry. So we are going to be more of safe than sorry. So we'll invest less in being in the sorry state and get those investments and put them elsewhere. We can have our own building set up, because I believe people are studying architecture in this country, but we are importing people to actually build those buildings. We are importing cement and other things, but doesn't Uganda have places which make cement? And yeah, we can use our own things to build ourselves. If the other people think that because we don't share an opinion with them, we cannot survive, they shall be surprised. Because to begin with, our country is called the Pearl of Africa with a reason. With a reason. The beauty in itself. They are them who caused the ban on us still want to come to Africa to look at our gorillas. They themselves who chased us away still want to come and feel the air, look at how the river flows. Isn't Uganda the one which isn't it where River Nile starts from? We have too much in our capacity to actually be feeling sorry for ourselves for not being helped by persons whom we used to help before we became slaves. Yeah, we have too much potential. Look, I want us as Africans, you as an individual, sit down and see yourself. Look at the things you think you can't achieve and ask yourself why you actually can't achieve them. Because there is too much you can do if you start by self-believing, self-productivity. If you think about yourself, build yourself, invest in yourself, you will surely be more productive than you have been the earlier years of your life.
Thank you so much. Quite comprehensive and quite really nourishing to the governance of this country. But I want to come to you, Jonathan.
Yes.
Sanctions to individuals, to institutions, to the state of Uganda. What does that mean for Uganda?
Well, sanctions most of the times come up after there has been a disagreement, and the point in question at this point is human rights, violation of human rights. And whereas we are all alive to the fact that yes, there is gross human rights abuse taking place, there is shrinking civic space, I wouldn't lie to myself that we do not have violation of human rights. Journalists are really facing a hard time when it comes to practicing in the current state of our democracy. But still, to the question of the marginalized, in quotes, and this speaks to the recently passed Anti-Homosexuality Act that was spearheaded by Honorable Suman Basalirwa. It's what is causing all these problems, in my opinion. However much we respect so much the decisions made by the United States, but it gives us a question of sovereignty. In case Philip does not agree to something, and I've been supporting Philip, it is right if I withdraw my support from Philip, but Philip also stands a right of sovereignty about his idea or opinion. So in this state, the United States took their steps as far as pushing Uganda to repeal this act is concerned. Uganda still holds its position to date, because at any point anything can happen. It can be repealed, because trust me, the impact this has on Uganda is not just about the theoretical impression, it is real. And I wouldn't speak from a biased point of view, because if at all I'm to speak with a lot of bias, there is being too patriotic, but again, there is reality taking place. At the end of it all, one, travel is not a big deal, because if at all, for example, the Commissioner General of the Prisons Service is, banned from traveling to the US, it doesn't stop him from leaving. Recently, the speaker was saying, as long as they do not ban her from accessing Bukedea. But then the bigger picture of it is in, for example...
But you see, Jonathan, we all agree that we're in a global village now. You need Ugandans to go to South Africa. You need Ugandans to travel to the US for benchmark, for resource mobilization, for anything in that line.
Yeah.
We coordinate, we work together.
Yes.
When you say travel is not so important, and these are people that are in charge of governance in this country.
And that is at their personal level, because this is something that I would not really look at as having so big effect. But then pointing to the fact, for example, for the temporary pauses of funding from the US, because the US gives a tune of around $1 billion to our economy. That is close to 3.8 trillion Ugandan shillings. And this is money that contributes something to our 52 trillion budget. And also, starting January, being stopped from enjoying the benefits of AGOA, the Africa Growth Opportunities Act. It is something that is now too grave for us as a country, because one, we need to trade as a country. We need to benefit from this duty-free access of the US market. But then, at the end of it all, we would not come to good terms if at all we do not agree with these people. So whatever is necessary at this point, in my opinion, is a round table discussion. We agree to disagree on matters from both ends. That's what I would say.
Thank you so much. Madam Lunkuse,
Yes.
is it the mandate of countries like the United States to police things such as human rights in Uganda? Is it their mandate?
It's not their mandate.
They should back off.
They should back off, because if they are trying to implement something that is not inhuman to us, because this thing, you are going to find out that if they start practicing it, it affects life. Seriously, you are going to find a young youth putting on pamper. You are going to find after putting on pamper dead. That means they are trying to reduce on our population indirectly. Indirectly, they are trying to reduce on our population indirectly. So they should back off, and we continue with our Uganda, because Uganda has everything. That Uganda is very rich, to the extent that it was called the Pearl of Africa. Even though we just embark on one thing, tourism. We just embark on one thing, that we start putting our emphasis on tourism. Uganda has everything.
Who will tour this Uganda?
Of course, it's not only US. Before, you are just looking on only one country, but there are other countries, even us.
I should give you information.
Yes.
You must understand that this world, the kind of politics that happens around the world, the United States, as it stands, is the global leader as a nation, and all its decisions are often implemented by its allies. So in this case, you're talking about the United States, come through Europe, the western part of Europe, countries like UK, Germany, England, France, Norway, Sweden, Netherlands, and so on.
Yes.
So do you see Uganda survive without relations with Europe and the United States?
For me, I see Uganda surviving, by the way. Seriously, I see Uganda surviving.
Thank you.
Without them. Because I will give an example. I've made some little research on Singapore. Singapore got its independence in 1961. just when we are trying to get ours. But Singapore, it is just like a highland, a small country that owns an island. But right now, Singapore, it's one of the countries that countries are running to get loans from there. That's why, and it's so just an island, just a country on island. What about Uganda that is having 8 hectares of land? Just because we just need to know that our backbone from ancient regime, it was agriculture. So let us just go back to our agriculture. We said that. That's why I was very happy when the new curriculum implemented like agriculture to be not option.
So you say that let the Americans keep whatever they are giving us. Let them keep their money. Let Europe keep its money. Let IMF and World Bank keep their money. Let Ugandans wake up. Be practical about the advantage they have of resources, the agriculture, the land, the minerals, and they will develop like Singapore.
Let me tell you, ever since these people have started helping us, what have they helped us? They're just taking what we are having. You know, having a friend that is pretending to be your friend, yet in actual sense, it's just taking what you are having. These are the people.
They provide money for HIV/AIDS patients.
Let me tell you, these are the people, because we are having herbalists, people who can sit in, we have had herbalists that can just go in laboratories and they prepare what they used to call them obudomola, something like that. And people were curing, and people were living their status, at least they could live longer. But now people who are taking ARVs, they don't even use that to take ARVs right now. It leaves them for 2 years, it dies. Because I have just currently buried someone, a friend like me. He was using them. After 2 years, he left them dead. He was a student even at Kyambogo, dead.
You have a comment on
I have
that?
an opinion. Let me just give you what I think about them funding HIV/AIDS. You know, when you fund something, it tends to increase. Let me see.
They do not fund the increment. They fund the alleviation, the treatment.
Yes. Let me reach. They pay for the ARVs. They provide the condoms. Now, when people are going out to sleep around, in their minds, they know,
I have
condoms, and just in case the condoms don't work and I get AIDS, there are ARVs. Do you think ARV treatment is cheap?
Very expensive.
It's very expensive. If you went to sleep with someone, having it in mind that if I got AIDS, I would be paying my own treatment, would you actually attempt to look for the AIDS? The ARVs are being given to you for free. But if it was your money that was going to buy those ARVs, you would not think twice. You would think once, and the one thought would be, I don't need the AIDS in my life.
You see, Angela, the reason we have the United States be in charge of something like that, which is so critical, health, it is the health of Ugandans. It is not among the, normal sectors of the economy. Health is because we did not have the capacity at the time.
I understand.
Are we generating that capacity in a month?
What I'm trying to say. What I'm trying to say. If you are getting something for free, you take it for granted. The matter of fact that you can have AIDS and nobody knows that you have AIDS because you have treatment provided for free. It's I don't know, it makes it laissez-faire for people. Yes, you don't want to have AIDS. You as a person, you don't want to have AIDS, but just in case you get it, they will not know. Why? Because you're already catered for. If you were the one to pay for that treatment, just that one tablet of the ARVs, if it was your money, you would think very hard at where you're going to get that money from to start with. And why you would be getting all the money you're getting to invest it in ARVs.
In other words, you say HIV patients should be left to look for that money, and therefore...
I'm saying that the ones who are known should be given the treatment. And then let them, if they can tamper with the provision of ARVs, the people who are known to receive ARVs be given the ARVs. and then they stop providing ARVs for people who are just getting into the system. Except, of course, if they have a story of rape or something of the kind, or getting the ARVs, HIV from a cat or something of the kind. But if it is for persons who have gotten the AIDS from hoeing around, like they state,
How do we get
it would
that
be paining.
evidence?
People can share with you. I mean, if someone got AIDS from like an accident, they would show you, I have a scar here, I got the HIV from this, and that would be fresh because there are already people who are stored in the database who have the AIDS. Now this is a new person. I'm just thinking out loud though.
Thank you so much. I want to pick your view on that because this is a very serious point. And really, what do you think of the whole situation?
One, to react to her submission, I would call it inconsiderate. You know, not everyone that has AIDS wish to have it.
I said that.
But still, not everyone that will contract it in the near future or in the future will have wished to get it. I want us to look at it from the point of children that are produced with HIV/AIDS. I want you to look at it from people who get AIDS, one accidentally from cats, maybe through accidents, but still at one point out of the recurrent sexual network all over the place, you know, you can still contract AIDS when it's not your wish. But my submission within that line, the US funds a big proportion of this through PEPFAR, and this is one of the very key things that are likely to be affected as far as these sanctions are concerned. Why I really would not wish for such a thing to happen, and why I would call for dialogue in this circumstance, is we wouldn't want to lose out the millions of people that are suffering with AIDS. But at the same time, we would not want to really be so inconsiderate of them. You know, it's not supposed to be discriminative in nature.
You know, let's talk people who get HIV. Recently, government released a report saying every hour 20 young Ugandans, and when you say 20 youth, contract HIV. And I think it went to about 4,000, is it in a day or a week? New cases, and they said Uganda registers 50,000 new cases, I think, every year or every month, something like that. Are we negligent to that extent that we do not care about HIV anymore?
I do not think it's a point of negligence, because at the end of the day, if at all we are to look at it from the point of one rotten tomato and many in a basket, the rate at which these tomatoes will get spoiled is really going to be too high. Even when you think, you know, there is a certain tomato in the corner that is very far away from this one in the center. My point here is, whenever we do not take it serious in a way of combating this scourge of HIV/AIDS, then the rates will continue to be high. And it points to the fact that, one, we need awareness. Yes, we sensitize the general public, and also call for, you know, indiscrimination when it comes to such an issue, because these people do not need to be stigmatized, even when they are sick.
You see, Jonathan, there is a contradiction I sense. This one tomato that is in between the basket, if you choose to throw it away, then that is stigmatization. Perhaps you are getting into her lane. And if you choose to keep it in there, you're endangering these other tomatoes that are within. But also, the more it keeps in between these tomatoes, the softer it gets, the pressure increases of them finding support onto it, because it's in between the basket. How do you solve that puzzle?
Because the issue of getting it out of the basket is not about elimination. Yes, in my submission, it's not about elimination, but rather about how best are we going to safeguard the many from this one rotten tomato.
Perhaps we put placards on this rotten tomato
No.
and say this is rotten.
Not really, but trying to make sure that this rotten tomato really gets out of that state to a point of restoration. Perhaps we try to treat this tomato that is yet to rot.
Thank you so much. Lunkuse,
Yes.
many tomatoes are rotting every other day. And most of these are young people. In fact, the report showed that when you detailed it, young ladies below
About
the
our
age of
age.
25, 27, 23, and older men, 40 to 60, are the people that are so much in the new cases. What is it with the ladies? What is it with the people?
What I know, this is according to my little research that I've searched, because I'm a campuser, I live with campusers, I associate with campusers, and these are
their leaders, so they tell you their challenges.
So this and the age bracket you are saying. You are going to find that girls at campus, let us be on the neutral ground. I'm speaking on the neutral ground. Some ladies at campus, they are not contented with what the little their parents give them. So you are going to find that they are going to these big men that are in 40s and they're already sick, they already have their diseases. Also, even they're not just having AIDS, but they're having other diseases that are totally terrible than even AIDS we are talking about. So they try to be having with them. And sometimes these big men, by the way, I'm speaking out of the neutral ground, they don't want to use protection. Because he's investing in. It's the man you are going to call, like, I need this. He gives you right away. And remember, this is my brother. My brother is still studying, I'm studying. He's also facilitating from his parents' money over some men are
limited resources.
Some limited resources.
And you have this one who doesn't mind.
Who doesn't mind? Because for him, he's already working, he's having everything. So you are going to just call and he gives you. You're going to just call and gives you. So you are going to find that trend.
In other words, what you say is that no restriction on investment, no restriction on return on investment.
Yes.
Wow.
Now you are going to find that you are going to find a girl dating this one, this innocent one.
So after getting from the high end, then you come to.
So now the problem is within us, the youth. So it's if they start sensitizing. Yes, people have tried to sensitize, but it's we who can just decide and say, this is what I have. I'm contented with it, and I will go with the little I'm having. As time my tuition is paid, just let me live the fancy life. You know, campusers wants to live a fancy life. Every week, new hair. Every week, new paints on. Every week, go to town shopping. So it's we just need to gather ourselves and we say, I'm contented with this. Let me be with it. If I'm having my 25 boy, let me be with him and let us stress each other, because even these ones are terrible. They go to sugar mummies. I've been on girls, but even the boys these days, the boys, the gents on campus, you are going to find them going to sugar mummies so that they get what the fancy cars, they come on campus driving so that girls follow them. So
and do they provide?
They provide, sugar mummies provides to them also. They provide. Be on the little ground.
I cannot submit to that because I'm not a victim. I'm not a culprit of the same, so I'm not certain.
Thank you so much. Mirembe, she raises a very important point, and she says you campusers are not contented. And for the benefit of our viewer, campusers are the people at the university, and all these people are campusers in that aspect. But when she says sensitization, the government of Uganda has really invested in sensitization. You cannot tune to a single radio station in this country and in 3 hours you don't listen to an advert about HIV. You can't go to TV and you don't see anything about HIV. There are billboards everywhere. And in fact, the government of Uganda has won awards in regards to the fight against HIV. Unfortunately, in the last 5 years, Uganda that was going down. In fact, the prediction was that by 2030, we shall never have any new case in the country. Today, they are rising 50,000 new contractions in the last 1 year. What can be done to make sure young people like you and I do not get in that trend?
What can I say? You know, sometimes I did sit down and think about AIDS. But you know, AIDS is the problem. But there is a cause of the problem. Why would a person my age, who was not born with AIDS, by the age of 25 have AIDS? That is what you're supposed to find out.
Pleasure.
Okay, pleasure would be one of them. Another would be money. Another would be poverty. So if we would address those problems, we would not have to deal with HIV. Like what I'm saying, a girl of my age wants money. If my parent has the ability to give me the money, it would be a good thing for me. I would not want to go looking for money from older people. Okay, I'm using myself as example because ladies will feel offended, but I'm not a victim of this because I feel that my integrity is much more valuable than money. You don't buy integrity. Yeah. So you can have little money and have your integrity, but having a lot of money without integrity is a problem. And if they ask you how you got AIDS, and the explanation you have is, I was sugar daddying around or whoring about, I mean, you even feel bad when you're explaining yourself. If you're in that room where of counseling, discussions, they ask you how you got it, you even feel bad to say how you got the AIDS. But if you got the AIDS maybe from a blood transfusion or from an accident, it would be more relatable. But if you're the one who went out looking for it because of discontent, if we learned the spirit of contentment, we would realize how much more we can actually be in life, and how much more we would, if we are content, there would be a lot in life that we find pleasure in, other than looking for money that we don't actually need at the very time we'd be looking for it. You need money, but the volumes of money you want, you don't need them at the time you're actually overlooking for them. As a campuser, what I need is to dress up, I need to eat, I need to attend class. I don't need to be driving a fancy car. That is a want. The need is I am dressed, I have eaten. The want is I have a fancy car. If we could differentiate between the need and the want, get the spirit of contentment, we would be far better in life and have less problems like AIDS in our society.
Thank you so much. AIDS. Briefly, I want to pick your final remarks on the issue of sanctions on individuals, on institutions of the state of Uganda. By the, it is not only the United States, the United Kingdom also came out with a couple of sanctions, and the European Union as a whole. Your final remarks about sanctions, Mr. Jonathan, in a minute.
Yes, Philip, the sanctions do not only rotate around the PEPFAR funding, and don't they only rotate around travel bans? But still,
PEPFAR, you said, World Bank.
If we are to look at the economic implications, for example, the AGOA limitation, so Uganda won't be in position to enjoy these benefits of duty-free access to the US market. But looking at it from the other perspective as well, these sanctions and their effect on governance, there is that breaking of the diplomatic ties, because if at all we cannot relate on matters that can't be solved on the round table, then that means whatever is going to happen to our diplomatic relations will be very negative. Thirdly, looking at the fact that, it is very important for us as a country to have a healthy populace. it is very, very, very important that we reconsider discussions. And I want to applaud, there was a team that went to the US just to start dialogue about the same. And this, I believe, is the way to go. It is the way forward for us. Yes, and maybe as I finalize, I would like to talk about the impact of these sanctions from two other dimensions. One,
Please briefly.
the political side of it and the civil society side of it. You know, it awakens our political character and our political understanding of matters that are affecting us as a country, because it all rotates around our policies and enactment of these laws. But secondly, it empowers the civil society to stand up for human rights that do not look to just one particular sector of discussion, but across. You know, we need civic space to really thrive. We need freedom to be observed. We need to have an outstanding democracy as a country. So journalists have to operate freely. So this speaks to a point of, are we really waking up politically to look at the things that really do matter and ignore what does not matter, according to the majority, as democracy puts it? Thank you.
Thank you so much, Jonathan. Mirembe, your final remarks.
Well, my final remarks are, whatever is happening to us, I believe it's going to continue happening to us if we actually still have limitations in our minds. Because you can only do as great as your mind can visualize. But if your mind doesn't visualize something great, you will never actualize it. And about the sanctions and all the things that are happening because of our failure to have a common ground with the United States, I believe they are depriving us of our opinion, and that is not a good thing. It is a manipulative relation. If I don't bend to your rules, you will not do this for me. But there is nothing wrong with you and I having different opinions about something. We can still exist. Yeah, you having an opinion that you should run 20 kilometers, and me, I'm saying I want to just run this split race of 20 meters. We should understand ourselves. We cannot afford becoming enemies to each other because we have difference in opinion. Well, I remain yours truly. Future is female. Mirembe Ssebunya from Kyambogo University.
Thank you so much, Your Excellency. Your final remarks.
My final remarks about the sanctions. You know, it's difficult. There is a saying that goes, it's better you go with the devil you know than going with an angel you don't know. So for me, my final remarks is, we just remain with the devil we know than going with an angel we don't know. Because even just...
And in this case, the angel is homosexuality.
No. Yes, the angel is homosexuality.
And the devil is our normal setting. Bisexual relationships.
Yes. Let us go with it. Because by God's grace, we were given the Pearl of Africa. If they refuse, that is what they have decided. And they will one day come looking for us. Because they have gone looking for China, they have gone looking for Singapore, because they refused what they wanted them to do, and they decided to do what they wanted to do. So for me, my final remarks is, we remain with the devil we know than going with an angel we don't know. I remain Lunkuse Rose, the campus president.
Briefly,
yes,
5
Phillip.
seconds.
Parting shots. Because I realized as they were giving their final remarks, they also gave their parting shots. One, we've just finished the Christmas celebrations. I would urge fellow Ugandans to keep up with the enjoyments, but then responsibly, because we need to see you in 2024. I want to wish you all a happy new year, 2024. May it be really filled with joy, happiness, and full of abundance. I remain Basalirwa Jonathan, from Makerere University, and like our slogan goes, we build for the future. We are looking forward to a future where Uganda will have to thrive because of its youth. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Basalirwa Jonathan, and send our greetings to the Commerce class at Makerere
Oh yeah, sure,
University.
I
We
will.
love them so much. Madam President, thank you so much for joining us today, and send our dear greetings to the people of Mutesa University. We love them so much. And the environmentalist Mirembe Angela, thank you so much for joining us today, and send our greetings to the community of Kyambogo University. And thank you so much to you, our viewers, for keeping with us all this time. It is the Youth Roundtable on CivicSpaceTV. I am Phillip Muliisa. Remember, this is made possible by the Center for Constitutional Governance. We appreciate the effort you put in building the civic environment of this country. Happy New Year, and may you have freedom always.